Go on. Right. And is there something?
What's that thing there?
Mm-hmm.
Are we live? Ah, live.
Hey,
It says we're live.
is there something we can record it, or doesn't it work that way?
Ah, look, it's all doing the thing. No, that happens afterwards, I think.
Ah.
Right, so... Alright, okay, so the comments are over on the left.
So we haven't got any
So
yet.
we haven't got... No, we're on our own. We're just talking into the abyss.
That's all right. I only got a few minutes to go. Do I need to come forward a bit?
No, I was going to go
push
back.
this
I was going to go back.
T-shirt, or is that
Further back we go, then we can see your t-shirts.
right? Okay.
See my t-shirt as well. Hey, we've got one person who's joined us. Who's that? Is it? There's one person up there.
Right, where? Oh,
There's
okay.
it says number 1.
Hi. Hi.
Hello, whoever you are.
Put a comment so we can see who you are.
Do you want to say hello? And then we can say hello back. We are a bit early, so also if you could comment and let us know that you can hear us. Our cat is playing up.
Yeah, that would be.
Should I let her out?
Up to you. Yeah. Ah, hang on. We've got more. We've got. I think we've got 4. Or is that 2?
Put your glasses on.
I'm not going to put my glass.
Is any
Hang on, what have we got here? Des Doyle. Hi, Des in Dublin here. Hi, Des.
Hi guys.
And Willie Russell.
Hi Willie. And can you hear us okay?
So it's 2, not 4.
No, we've got 4 people.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Right. We're almost there. Give it another minute. Or.
Cat's gone out.
Ian Ashcroft. Hi.
Hi,
Ian.
Ian.
Hi. Right. I guess we can get started then, yeah?
Start drinking.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, yeah. No, actually, 1 minute 2. 1 minute 2.
Oh, do we have to wait 1 more minute though, actually?
Nah,
Well,
so-
you can. Oh, where's mine? Oh, it's down here.
No, right. Okay.
I did say that I would be drinking Cava, but I didn't get around to buying any. So I've got a white Rioja, and this is my chiller, which is very necessary here. It's a small glass, so I'll be topping it up frequently. No judging.
Okay, so
Is it?
right.
We've still only got 4 viewers. We could do multiple toasts.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, loud and clear. Willie says, so that's cool. Right. Okay. Well, we can relax then. And so while we're waiting for your questions to come in, I wanted to propose a toast to everyone who made Spacewarp possible, and this will take a couple of minutes or so.
We've got a list.
So we got the first of all the comic strip artists, and that includes Ian, who's tuning in. The feature artists, the beta readers, who gave us some great feedback on what we were doing and how it could be little tweaked here and there. Phil Vaughan, who made the superb trailer. Carol Beggin, who designed our website. Vince Hunt, our art editor. And there's anybody else I may have missed.
Did you mention Darren? Oh, you were not mentioning people by name because it would go on forever.
It would go on forever, and I really want to get into this. So.
And me, you've got to thank me.
And absolutely, and to Lisa doing all the technical stuff, which is, if you'd seen us.
Any technical problems at all, they're all my fault. It's nothing to do with Pat.
Completely technically illiterate. And of course, above all, to you, the readers, who bought Spacewarp. And I see now there's 12 of you, so that's great.
I think that's celebration.
Yeah,
Can we have a drink now?
Yeah. So just a You can see how I could be a real bore at weddings, going on and on.
And accustomed as I am.
Yeah. So, if I had to sum up what Spacewarp's all about, it's about creators taking back their power. Because all the stories are creator-owned. And that's the simple reason why the standard is so high. Because you've probably heard me rant on enough about this in the past, that selling all rights basically was the prime reason that British comics were pretty much dead. So Spacewarp is a new departure from that position, if you like. And as Joe Hakim on BBC Radio Humberside said last night, Spacewarp is more than a comic. It's a rallying cry. So, to Spacewarp.
To Spacewarp.
Cheers, guys.
Gosh, I'm thirsty. Lovely.
So, before we get into questions, are any questions coming up as yet?
No, people saying hello. Oh, thanks for commenting. What would also be helpful is if I think you should be able to share the live thing, I think, and then that will help to tell more people that we're live. And because I'm not sure, we haven't got a huge amount of followers on Spacewarp, and so maybe not everyone's going to get the notification. So if it is possible to share it, that would be really great. That would help us reach more people. So
the competition for the Slayer artwork. So we maybe dig that out to. Generously donated by James Newell, the Slayer artist, and I can say that there was a lot of blood, sweat and tears went into this particular image of Slayer, as James would say if he was online just now, and we're really delighted with it. But there was a lot of work went into getting Slayer right. Was very tough because there's a lot of demands on him as a character. Anyway, thanks to everybody who sent in their entries on what Doc Zot might be saying. So maybe we should turn to Doc Zot at this point.
We've got this rather
migraine-inducing image.
Alarming little wobble head, but we also have.
I think that one's easier on the arm. Doc Zot, brilliantly created by Charlie Gillespie.
So this wasn't a very good idea, was it? Because it's all reflecting back on the screen. I hope you can see that. We don't actually have, a print edition, and so of anything really, and our printer's a bit crappy, so there was no point printing it out on paper.
I think you get the idea.
You get the idea, and I think everyone's seen Doc Zot.
Right.
We love Doc Zot.
Yeah. I think he is my favourite character because he is so foul, and this was borne out actually by the readers.
The readers are disgusting.
Yeah, they're really. So we have two runners-up who win Spacewarp T-shirts. So let me get to those first of all. And the first runner-up is Michael Nimmo. Thanks, Michael, for sending in your entry. And
you've got to read it out.
Yeah, I am indeed.
In which accent?
In a neutral accent. If I could do Doctor Who aliens.
In a sort of East Anglian.
Ipswich
accent.
In an Ipswich accent, I suppose. So he's saying, let's just hold him up just for a second.
I'll do that bit.
Okay.
I'm doing it wrong, right? Okay.
Okay, and he's saying, it's your choice. In my left hand is a warp-filled comic of schlock and arg, or you can choose what's in my right hand. So that was the first runner-up. Now the second one, I believe it's meant to be delivered with a Glasgow accent. It's from Adam McNellis, yeah. But I'm not going to attempt it, especially on this one. Listen, you sad little skid mark. I didn't travel billions of light years to listen to your shine. In fact, download Spacewarp comic right now or my third eye and eye will shove this syringe right up your brown eye all the way, and with zero tenderness. So that seemed to have started a Glasgow trend. And of course, I can't even begin to do justice to the Glasgow accent, although I can hear it in my head. Now, the winning entry, roll of drums, is Andrew McIlwain, and he sent this in by email.
You're not going to try it.
Wait. I'll try, and then you can. Then oh, you're going to do it.
No, you do it. You have a go.
Okay, right. And his entry was as follows. He said, "If Zot were a Glaswegian, his caption might run, 'I'm not jagging that methadone again. Feck's sake, I thought I was selling the big issue.'"
That was really good.
I have been practicing that.
All day he's been saying, "I'm not doing a Glasgow accent. I can't do a Glasgow accent."
Well, are you going to do one? Because you're
I don't need to. I don't need to now because you've done such a good job.
Oh, all right. So
congratulations to Andrew McIlwain for winning the original art, which I think James is going to sign.
Yes, he is, and it'll be sending it off to you,
we'll
Andrew.
Sort out
and you know, and thanks for your cerebral winning entry. It's good to know that you're raising the intellectual standard of the comic. That's excellent. So right, so that's that.
Oh, and of course the runners-up need to get in touch and
size.
Tell me what size and address, and they probably want this T-shirt as modelled.
Take a 12, yeah.
But we do have a couple of other designs on the website as well, so if you wanted something else, just let me know and we'll sort that out.
Terrific. Okay, so any questions yet? No?
No one has any questions.
Okay, right. Well, I shall burble on then. That's no problem. Yeah, I suppose one of the things I wanted to get into last night on Radio Humberside was how this thing about Spacewarp being a comic for all ages, and that's a sort of different thing to creator-owned, because you can have lots of great creator-owned comics, and inevitably they're going to be aimed at adults or people say 20 upwards. But what I wanted to try and do with Spacewarp was a comic for all ages, and the significance of that probably needs a bit of further explanation from me. So that's what I'll get into just now. It means that you're trying to appeal to 16-year-olds as well as people who would be in their 40s or even older. And I think I'm the last man standing on this, which is a bit scary. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, is to pass on what I regard as very obvious skills, but they're not obvious to many other people, or maybe they don't care. So perhaps I need to mention a couple of them. But there's lots of things that when you're trying to appeal to a mass audience, and these were the rules that applied at DC Thompson's. It's why they had these incredibly successful comics like Warlord, which I think sold maybe over 1 million on its first issue. And there's certain rules that it's not because you're smarter than anybody else, it's because you find out the hard way. So I really wanted to pass this on because I sort of realized one day that whenever I retire or whatever, these things are just going to disappear, and these rules have got to be rediscovered. So I'll mention a couple. One's a really simple, obvious one, but you'd be surprised at how many so-called mainstream comics still break this rule. You have to have the hero's name in the title. Now, there are exceptions, like Flesh, for example, or Third World War, but even there, if the title was, I don't know, Godzilla or Old One Eye or something, in the case of Flesh, it's not a very strong title, but if you have the villain's name or the hero's name in the title, it's going to be a lot more successful. And that's a golden rule that I learned the hard way, and I've endlessly talked about this, and it's endlessly ignored. It's okay in a movie to have a completely different kind of title, and in a novel. But in comics, you look at all the successful comic books, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, Judge Dredd, and so on. You have to have the hero's name in the title. Now, there's a host of other rules like that. And I'm trying to think of a more complex example, and I'm picking one which I'm guessing a fair number of you might have seen, and that's Warrior Nun. Now, Warrior Nun, I doubt they're going to get a second series from Netflix, and the reason will be because the hero, the heroine, if you like, is not proactive. And again, this is something you find out the hard way. In what used to be termed girls' comics, we would, from time to time, have kind of victim heroines. But even there, they still bond, for the most part. There might be the odd exception. But for male-orientated comics, the hero has to be proactive. And if you look at Warrior Nun, I'm up to about episode 7 now.
Are you still watching it?
Hmm? Yeah, I've got to get to the end. And anyway, as an ex-Catholic, I'm fascinated by it.
That's quite amazing, because Pat's tolerance for shit TV is almost zero. So I can watch quite a lot of stuff if it's a sort of...
And you do.
vaguely entertaining, turn my brain off. You know, if your brain's been working really hard during the day, you just want to watch something that's like, as long as it is quite fast paced. I can't do it if it's slow. But you'll just fall asleep. Like
I'm just
within a couple of minutes. So I mean, and there's also really good quality stuff that I obviously critically well received. I really like it, but you don't. So I got you through season 1 and season 2 of Ozark, and then, boy, season 3 just, I don't think we got past episode 2.
No.
I think also because there was a really long gap between 2 and 3, and you couldn't remember anything, or who anybody was, why anything was happening. It was really confusing.
That was a money laundering one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was,
I remember that.
Yeah. And I have to go back to watch it on my own sometime. So for you to be on episode 7 of Warrior Nun...
Well, it is partly the whole Catholic thing, which is... and I know that whoever wrote that, I know it's a comic book originally, and the dialogue is actually really good. It doesn't actually fit the character, but you've got to admire I think it's the director. It's got some very slick dialogue. But that doesn't save the series, because the heroine is constantly behaving like a victim. So you have these real kick-ass nuns in the background who are doing all kinds of martial arts and so on. But they're the background characters. They're not the prime character. So now that kind of thing, when you're producing mainstream comics, comics for all ages, that kind of thing, you would get picked up on immediately. You know, an editor would pick it up, or maybe the managing editor even, and they'd say, why the hero is not very good. They're not being very proactive. And defenders of Warrior Nun would say, well, she comes good in the end, because I gather she becomes quite proactive around episode 7 or episode 8. But if you're aiming at an audience of 16-year-olds, you've got to hook them in straight away. They have no tolerance for waiting. Adults will. They'll say, oh, I really like the slow way this story built up, and there was this sudden revelation in book 4 of whatever it is. and it just will not
But
wash.
I wonder if the comic book was different. I'm surprised that if the comic followed the same structure, that it would have been a hit, because in comics you can't normally get away with a protagonist who isn't proactive for
Maybe,
7
I'd
episodes.
have to look at the comic book to see.
Let the cat back in.
But the thing is that kind of what should we say, mainstream comic for all ages, those kind of things we were producing, and they were selling, let's say 150,000 copies a week, 170,000 copies a week. And okay, we all know about 2000 AD, which sold initially 200,000 copies a week, but it wasn't unique. There were lots of other comics as well. Tammy, I think, at one point was running at about 220,000 copies a week. Jackie, I think, probably sold over 1 million. And so there's all these skills that lots of us had, and there wasn't anything that unique about what I was doing. And then suddenly, as I say, you wake up one day and you think, shit, it's now all become adult creator-owned comics, and there's nothing for a 14-year-old, there's nothing for a 16-year-old. They can't get into these stories, and that's what seems to happen with Marvel and DC as well. The same argument, I think, has been raised in the States. I think a DC editor is on record as saying that editors often say, the reason comics have collapsed is because that's the same thing's happening with superhero comics, I understand, is because, you know, it's changing technology, changing times, and so on. That's absolute crap. And the DC guy, I think, said the same thing. He said it's just poor editors. And there's a reason for this that's relevant, which is, you see, they're all staff, right? So everyone who works for Marvel and DC and Rebellion, they're all staff. So if a comic goes to the wall, they're either going to get their redundancy or they're going to get moved on to a different publication. And the difference with John Wagner and I, when we created Battle together, and then I went on to do Action in 2000 AD, is we're freelance. And that's the huge difference to, because if you're staff, at the end of the day, it's a job 9 to 5:30. And I can assure you that when all these comics that were selling 150,000 copies a week, that sort of figure, the people often connected with them, they didn't give a damn about it. They really didn't care. And most of them were looking forward to their redundancy. And what they used to do every morning was they would do their staff work in the morning, and then after lunch they'd say, freelance time, and out they get, and they'd be doing stuff for other magazines and so on. The whole thing was a racket. And the reason that I had a different attitude wasn't because I'm morally superior to them or anything like that, far from it. The reason was because I was freelance. So I had to produce comics that really wanted to sell. And all these staffers, I kid you not, they effing hated both John and I, because we were such a threat to their redundancy. All they wanted to do was get a fat check and disappear. And so that, because we were freelance, we had to produce a successful comic in Battle. And the more they hated me when I was doing 2000 AD, the more it kind of revved me up to go, all right, I'll show you guys, you know? So that's the sort of background of it, which I get into a bit on Be Pure, Be Vigilant, Behave, but it's quite nice to sort of hit some other notes on that. And that's really the whole background, that these guys were staffers and they didn't care. Now, I think Rebellion is different. I think the people who work there they do actually love 2000 AD. There's no question about that. I'm not sure they particularly like difficult freelancers like me who say, actually, you're not treating us with proper respect. But at the end of the day, they're still staffers. They're still secure. And so you don't have to work ridiculous hours because you can say, well, it's just a job. And I suppose that brings me on to something else that, if you like, I'm continuing while I'm waiting for someone to ask me a question.
He won't
if you
stop
want me,
unless
if you want me to stop, you're going to have to ask a question.
You'll have to break in.
Yeah. So the whole thing with what you might call writer and artist response to this, you have this unfair system where you sell all rights. So what are you going to do? You're going to produce masterpieces on occasion, and that did happen. Kevin O'Neill, you look at some of that beautiful artwork he did on Nemesis. I mean, I think he was living off cornflakes or something at the time, because, you know, he would be taking forever, probably 3 days over a page, something like that. But other people found alternative solutions, and sometimes those solutions were not very good. And the classic example, and I kind of admire him, although I would never copy him, and that's Tom Tully, who, if you like, was the key writer, say, before John Wagner and I came along. And he introduced himself on one occasion as, hi, my name's Tom Tully, and I earn more money than the British Prime Minister, before Tony Blair, of course. And so when I met Tom for the first time, he said, how many scripts can you write in a day? And I go, maybe one. He said, I can do 3 in a day. I can do 3, sometimes 4.
What comic were you working on?
Well, he was working on Valiant, and I think I might have been working on Valiant at the time.
Right, okay, so this it's got nothing to do with 2000 AD, this is pre...
No, but he applied the same rules to Battle and also to 2000 AD, which is why eventually...
He worked there as well?
Yeah, and his story on Battle was fantastic, Johnny Red, except for one thing, that any Johnny Red fan will tell you that he was endlessly recycling the same story over and over. So, Tom was an incredibly talented writer, but he took the view, and I every sympathy with him on this, that the company is ripping him off by buying all rights and not paying reprint fees and so on and so forth. So he says, okay, I'm going to rip the company off. And that's what happened. If you look at Valiant, I think probably the best stories in there are almost certainly by Tom. But, you know, after you read about 6 or 7 issues, you can start to see how he's really spreading it really thinly on the page. And the same would happen on occasion with artists. Coming up to date with 2000 AD, I think, you know, there are 1 or 2 artists who you could say, you can tell when the meter's running. And then there's others who did brilliant artwork, but they still had to be aware of time. And there's the famous story of Ron Smith, who apparently had an ink timer, and when the sands of time had run out, he would turn the art page to the wall. Now, if you look at Ron Smith's work, I don't know how he did it, because there's so much detail in that. It's absolutely incredible. But I'm sure you can think of other artists from time to time who've pissed stuff off. And it's not their fault, because they're thinking, well, you know, I've got a mortgage, you know, I've got a life, and you know, I get that much in royalties from 2000 AD. So, you know, you've got to find a way to beat the system. And there's another guy who I think really beat the system, but in a way that endeared him to, and rightly endeared him to fans, and that's Carlos Esquerra. because he was really fast, and yet the quality never dropped. It was Carlos's style, and he just did a fantastic job. So he beat the system really, and I think in a way that's probably why Rebellion love him, because he was a good poster boy, you know, for saying, well, look, Carlos never complained.
You can knock it out and you can be successful,
and
it works.
But that's
just his talent, surely. I mean,
he found a way to do it.
Yeah, he had a style and a talent, and he knew how to be professional.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were working on the colouring book together, you know, when we first started, he said, "Yeah, no, I can't remember what it was now. It was something like, you won't see me in this last 2 weeks of the month because that's when I'm working to deadline, and I just only do that, and I don't see anyone, and I don't talk to anyone. You know, I don't answer any emails or anything. So the best time to catch me is like after, I don't know, like the 29th of the month when I've handed my work in."
But I was like that, wasn't I? When because it's the only way to beat the system.
Well, the only way to pay your mortgage, I think.
So I would say to you, right, I'm incommunicado for the next couple of weeks. But that's not a way to fucking live. Frankly, it's not a way to live. It's inhuman, and it's a system that.
It's quite draining. It's not good for your home life. I have to say. No,
it's not good. And you have other artists. Their solution is they have a second job, and this is ridiculous. Well, the one that I think a lot of you will empathise with. You go to a convention. And the artists actually have found a way, and good for them, of making up for this all-right system. So what they do is they charge for sketches. And so the days when they would turn up at conventions and probably get hideously drunk at the bar, and I know all these stories about particular artists who did that, but they don't have the time to socialize anymore. Which is one of the reasons that fans go to conventions. They go to the conventions to sort of hang out with writers and artists and hear all the gossip and all this kind of stuff. And instead of that, they're all with their heads down, drawing away like crazy. It's just it's a crap system. And the reason I'm going on about it is because I felt rather than endlessly moaning about it is to actually do something about it, because I always sort of thought, well, someone will do something about it one day, someone will get it right, and I thought, shit, no one's going to do it, I've got to do it. So that's very much the logic behind Spacewarp, and that, if you like, gets me onto, well, the standard of artwork on Spacewarp, where if you look at I think nearly all the stories, both art-wise and story-wise, they probably went through about 3 versions. So in other words, an artist might, I don't know, design the characters and they nearly get it right, or just wants a bit of tweaking along the way. But if you're selling all rights, you can't ask an artist, you can't say to them, could you do that again? And in fact, I have tried telling them that, and they normally tell me in their own different ways to F off, because you know, the system doesn't allow you to. They say, well, I don't think it matters that much. I'm going to try and keep this as vague as I can, but there was one particular sequence which I felt was selling. This is in 2000 AD, that was selling the readers very short indeed. And so I brought it up with Matt, and Matt said, well, I don't know, I think it's okay. So he brought it up with the artist, and the artist explained to me that it was an impressionistic mood piece, which I don't accept as a reason. It's not, you've got to give value for money. And so anyway, that was the logic behind Spacewarp.
So that's how we have been able to torture all of the Spacewarp artists and put them through agony.
And the other thing, of course, is...
I don't know if Ian's still here, but he...
Yeah, I think...
Nod if you agree, Ian. Hope we didn't make your life too difficult.
Well, you know, when I was looking for artists, of course, that's the other thing to remember. When 2000 AD started, with the notable exceptions like Carlos Esquerra, yeah, and of course there was Mike McMahon as well. But most of the great British artists that came through, they didn't come through immediately. It took time. So when I was looking at possible artists for Spacewarp, I had to think, you know, is there a McMahon out there? Is there a Kevin O'Neill out there? Is there a Brian Bolland out there? And I think if you look at the standard of artwork, you can imagine if all these guys keep going the way they are, they're going to be huge names in the future. And well, I mean, I personally hope that they're huge names on Spacewarp. But if you know, someone in America or 2000 AD or elsewhere gives them an offer of a job as well, then I'm thrilled for them. I hope these things will more and more become, you know, creator-owned things, because I think I've probably spoilt them a bit by the fact that, you know, when we've been creating stories, what I do is I look at the things that they do really well, and then I kind of play to those elements in their artwork. So, for instance, on Jurassic Punks, the female character there, Dada Durda, she was a kind of a relatively walk-on part, and in fact the story was originally called Jurassic Man. But you know, especially 21st century and everything else, it needed more of a unisex feeling to it. But Bruno Stahl's artwork just had this, you know, the heroine has at least as much character as the guy.
That's the great thing, is that you were able to respond to Bruno's art. So we saw Dada and we were like, God, she's amazing. We need to see more of her. And you then, that really inspired you to give her a much bigger backstory, and then that sort of one thing led to another, and then before you know it, she's actually a main character, and I'm like, I think we need to change the name.
Yeah, so it became Jurassic Punks.
Yeah, and that's great that you have the freedom to do that. Yeah,
I mean, even if I go back to stories like, say, Slain, that went through a lot of drafts before the final version ended up in 2000 AD. And I suppose at that point, you know, you're kind of subsidizing the publisher. But to be fair to them, they did make some effort to kind of help you here and there. Because it doesn't matter how you cut it, if you're going to do a mainstream comic book character, whether it's for 2000 AD, Spacewarp, or something entirely different, you've got to allow a minimum of 6 weeks of development.
Per story?
Per story, easily, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of things that, you know, you've got to spend time, as Mike McMahon used to say, staring out the window, thinking about things. Now, if you're Tom Tully, you can't do that. It's like, how many stories can I bang out today, you know? And I think all the really talented guys on 2000 AD, they spent a lot of time staring out the window and mulling things over, and
there's loads more comments. I didn't realise there were all these comments, sorry.
Okay, right.
I was just thinking, no one's saying anything. Obviously, they love to hear Pat talk. Maybe so those are people saying, shut up, shut up, for God's sake, give it a rest. Right.
Right.
What have we got? Hang on a minute. You carry on.
I'll carry on babbling until you found me a suitable.
Mike Donaldson. Hello, Mike. I don't know if you're still here. That was 30 minutes ago. I'm so sorry. Let's spam. When's the print version out? That's funny and not funny. As I have answered so many.
Lisa's answered that one so many times. She's starting to get a little frayed around the edges.
The web developer Caro. Special shout out to Caro, who just saved my sanity. She said, I really think it'd be a good idea if we had a frequently asked question page on the Spacewarp comic website. And we were like, she said, if people are asking you about when the print version's coming out, I'm like, yeah, then no one will bother us with this question. I don't think anyone has read that FAQ.
Even if they did, they still ask you. When's it coming out?
It's a really nice idea, Caro, but no one reads that page. James's work is incredible.
Right.
Oh, that's nice, Ian. Oh, hi, Bruno. Hello.
Right.
Michael Nimmer, yes, you're runner-up. So, yeah, T-shirts for you. Hi, Bruno Rios. Come on, thank you. There we go. Des, physical release dates. All right, I'll come back to that in a minute. When is number 2 out? We've actually answered that on the FAQs as well, in a roundabout sort of way. Okay, Willie. Okay, do you really think the Queen and George Soros are shape-changing lizards, or is that just a good metaphor and starting point for stories?
I think, I don't know, I think I've gone through my sort of David Icke phase. I think on Spacewarp, I actually really like lizards, having worked as a field ecologist. And I like all reptiles and amphibians, and I think it's an insult to those species to associate such people with such noble species. So, everyone's asking when the print edition will be out. Yeah, okay. Well,
do you really want other writers to pitch stories and take over scripting duties in future issues? That's a good question. That's a really good question.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. Now, this does feel to me like I'm sort of travelling back in time here. What happened with 2000 AD was I decided to write all the episode 1s myself and kind of sketch out where the stories were going. I did it the other way on Action, where I would kind of discuss a story with a writer, and then they would go away and write it, and I'd rewrite it. And I found that process so time-consuming that it put me off the idea of bringing in other writers, or at least at the beginning. And of course, I then realised, well, I can't write the whole damn thing, and the only writer I felt really confident with leaving alone was John Wagner, obviously on Judge Dredd, and he wrote a couple of other things as well. I think wrote a couple of Mac 1s, maybe, things like that. So it was a real problem. Where the hell would you get the writers from? And we kind of, I brought Jerry in, and the trouble is, when you bring new writers in, they've got to go through the same process as the artists. You've got to go through endless revisions and so on. So you've got to think, how do I make this economic? And I think the answer, well, let me just roll back a bit. On 2000 AD, I kept things going for the first 3 months. I thought, on Action, I kind of just left them to it because they were on a roll, and they were going, hey, we're going to be even more risque than Pat, and I couldn't seem to stop the way it was going. So on 2000 AD, I thought, okay, I'll get the first 3 months really working out, and then after that, they're on their own. And that sort of worked, but I think there were casualties of it. I think the principal casualty was that John's quality of writing, not to mention Carlos's art, meant that there was a feeling of it became dread and the rest. And I think there's still a bit of that still lurking on 2000 AD even to this day. So how I'm going to try and approach it this time, all things being equal, is like a TV series, because that's a more comparable role model. Issue 1, phase 1, is like season 1. And if you think you have a season of a particular character, and then you have to wait maybe a year for the second season. So I think that's the role model. And how it works is the writer-creator, the showrunner or whatever, normally maps out the whole story, and he or she will tend to write episode 1 and episode 2 and maybe the last episode. And so I'm going to use that as my role model. I mean, that's looking over a very long story arc here. But something along those lines. And you actually work out the story en route. Now, I'm probably going to hunt down writers that I think will be right for this project. Because I think an awful lot of writers in comics see it from what you might call a self-expression point of view. You know, like if they're working for Vertigo or something like that, or and that won't work on Spacewarp. It's like a TV series. The characters have a particular direction to go in, and they've got to stay within those tram lines and show a certain level of creativity within it. In other words, to say, okay, that's worth it. And then, of course, you've got the economics of it, because you've got to think, okay, if we're rewarding everyone on royalties, it's got to work out in such a way that they get a royalty for their episode. So a lot's going to depend on sales. I mean, if the sales are sufficiently high, you can say, okay, well, out of the writers, 100%, the new writer gets a significant percentage of that 100%. Now, if the sales aren't good enough, it just means they're going to get, I don't know, whatever, you know, 10 quid a page or something like that, and that's no good. So I've got to see how the economics of it work out and go forward from there. But I think television is the right model. Now, I don't know. I think a lot of writers think they can sort of, you know, just move the thing off in another direction. And if you look at TV writing, you can't do that, because whatever the series is, Killing Eve, for example, you'd have to look really closely to see the join between the different writers. You know, you might see one who's a little got the edge over some of the others and so on. But they're not all going off and doing their own thing. And I think a lot of writers in comics think that's, you know, it's self-expression. Not on Spacewarp, it's not, because the audience comes first and the creators come second. Now that sounds a little obvious, but let me give you an example of that. Tardy in France does the equivalent of Charlie's War. And so I talked to him once about this, and I said, well, you know, do you have an audience in mind when you did these incredible stories about World War I? And he said, no, I just write what comes into my head, into my soul, and then I write it and draw it and so forth. And of course, that's the complete opposite of what I did on Charlie's War, where I thought, how am I going to interest a 13-year-old kid in Charlie's War when there's all this competition like Major Easy and Rat Pack and Johnny Red and so on. And so I'm putting the consumer first and myself second, and you'll find a lot of creators will say that's heresy, and it's not. It's called mainstream publishing. And the reason that mainstream publishing in comics has largely disappeared, or it's gone, isn't it? Is because you need editors who will impose those rules and understand them, In other words, it's the equivalent of having a really good script editor on a TV drama series. But if as an editor, you just want to do it as a 9-to-5 job and you don't care, or if you want to be the nice guy down the pub, yeah, then you can be the nice guy down the pub, but you won't have a very good product. Any more questions yet? No?
There's loads of people asking when the physical issue is coming out, so we could deal with that really quickly.
Over to you.
Sometime in the autumn. We are definitely bringing out a physical edition. It's probably going to be mid-October-ish. Don't hold me to that. And it will be available through comic shops, the ones that we can reach, the ones we can distribute to.
And print on demand.
And print on demand from Amazon. And also, I've been a bit out of the indie publishing loop because of all this stuff, but I saw today that you can also, there is a Barnes & Noble print on demand, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah. So we'll have hopefully I'll use as many channels that are available to me as possible.
That's for the States, yeah?
Yeah.
Right.
And we also use a printer called Ingram, who, sorry if you can hear our cat complaining in the background, Ingram, who will print on demand and supply any bookstore in the world, pretty much. If you go in there and say, I'd like to order a copy of this book, if it's we get into the Ingram catalogue, which you just do and you upload your files to them, and then the bookstore can check and they'll see us on the catalogue and they can order the book. So we will be out there. We just have to get through marketing and all this stuff and we've got lots of different things going on, and then I will get knuckled down, and Vince Hunt, who is the art editor on Spacewarp, he's going to help me finesse for the book. I mean, I have published quite a lot of books now, but there's a lot of black ink in Spacewarp, and you want to make sure you get the levels right.
That's something.
So it's just making sure that's right. So Vince is going to help me there. So shout out to Vince, and thanks to Vince for all of the help and support that he's given us and the design work that he's done for us so far. And he will be continuing to be part of the team.
Yeah, it's going to need a little fine tuning, because what works digitally is not necessarily going to work in quite the same way in a paper edition. So the only thing you can do is produce a dummy, and then we have a look at it and think, well, actually, the stories would be better in a different order. In other words, you could find that when you come to look at the paper one, you kind of move stories around a bit.
God, now you're scaring me.
Well, you know, if for example, it depends on things like if some of the stories are very black, right? There's a lot of ink on the page. You might want to, you know, just move it around a little bit. Okay, we start off with the existing configuration, and hopefully it'll work. But you might think to yourself, you know, you leaf through it, and then you think, yeah, something's not quite working. And you go for a long walk, and you come back, and you think, actually, it would be better if it was the other way around. So there's all that kind of, you know, just fine tuning. And the other thing, of course, is originally we had quite a number of stories with substantial bleeds, and it became too overwhelming, because I like the size that we're going to do the, I don't know if we've got a copy of Carlos's book here. Anyway, I like the size, oops, content, what's happened?
Oh.
We're still there? Yeah, I think we're still there. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. That was weird.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I looked away. I looked away, and you disappeared.
Okay, so I like the size of Spacewarp tremendously. I think you know, it's a large size, but you have to watch that it doesn't become too overwhelming. You know what I mean? In other words, if you've got really very heavy bleeds and things like that, that can be an issue.
I couldn't find cast, but I've got Psycho Killer here.
Yeah, it's big.
The trim is going to be the same as this. I mean, this is a reprint from Toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic new cover by Dave Kendall. Let's do a quick plug for Dave Kendall's. I've got so much love for this comic, and I wish it was more more popular. I mean, what's not to love? Talk about schlock and arg. This is really this is good. This is good shit, man. This is good shit. So anyway, it's going to be that size, and it is quite big. So you know, you've got to make sure that as Pat said, it doesn't like just look. Oh, it's weird, but it can look too big.
Yeah, it's getting all that kind of fine tuning. And of course, the other thing is, over time, we're going to get feedback from the readers.
That's right. Yeah, we do need to actually hear from more people about what they think about it and what they think about the artwork and the presentation. I'm going to quickly move on. There's a couple more questions because Ian said, "Hi Pat, what part of creating Spacewarp was most enjoyable for you? Was it creating the stories, seeing the artwork coming in, or pulling the whole thing together and seeing the end result, or something else?"
I think it was. I think it's the hunt for artists when you come across really exciting artists like you, Ian, and so
I think when an artist came in and you go, "Oh my God, have you seen this? Oh, this would be perfect." Yeah, that's a really exciting.
That's
moment.
thrilling. That's really thrilling. So, for instance, on Hellbreaker, the story was originally was always had a kind of hot, sexy quality to it. And then Ian comes along and his artwork is very hot and very sexy. And, you know, there's a lot of subtext to what's going on in, you know, the way...
because not all artists can have that kind of smouldering quality. So, I hate to say it, but a lot of male artists, when they're drawing sexy women, they might just draw big tits and tiny waists and make them look a bit young, and like obviously works for a lot of people. Whereas Ian manages to do something that Faye Dalton also does, which she draws very sexy women, but they have a lot going on behind the eyes.
Too sexy for 2000 AD, I think.
Apparently so.
Another story,
apparently so. But you know, Ian has that same thing where you're like, oh, okay, this is a sexy woman. You know, she's a lot of eye candy, but you think there is something going on in her head, and there is a real chemistry going on between her. I'm talking about McNeil, the inspector,
mm-hmm.
and the hero Delarue. So so it's really exciting when an artist takes what you've given them and just like goes absolutely fucking turbocharged with it. You know, it's and
the same with Aid Hughes on Future War. Now we went through a number of possible artists on
a lot. I think was that the most.
And I was thinking, because you know,
I think that was the last one that we got, and it was like, are we actually ever going to find anybody?
Well, no, but there were a couple of hot contenders.
There was David Broughton, was it?
Yeah, and Bruno Stahl on. And then Aid came out of nowhere with it, because in the back of my mind I was thinking, this has got to press that Future War button, like Road Trooper and Bad Company and so on. And then Aid's work comes along, and I'm thinking, yeah, he's really got it, man. You know, it just presses all the right buttons. So yeah, that's the really exciting bit about discovering these artists. And there's a new question.
We nearly been on for an hour, so I just want to say quickly, because Adam McNellis was here. I don't know if you're still here, Adam, but you are a runner-up. If it's the same, is it Adam McNellis?
Yeah. Hello, everyone from sunny Glasgow. Looking forward to.
It has to be. You won a T-shirt. For your wit.
And I'm just looking ahead to. There's a question here from Odette. Will you and Spacewarp team be at conventions when they open again? yeah, I mean, when are they going to open?
We had big plans for launching. We had been talking to some people in London, and we were going to maybe have a party like above a pub, or maybe we were going to ask if we could go to the Cartoon Museum, and we wanted to have a like really nice informal celebratory atmosphere, and we wanted to go to the Humber Triangle because you have 3 artists there, and maybe go somewhere else. And it was like we had all these plans for going out and doing signings and stuff, and everything just got scuppered. Which is actually why we've done a digital first release, and because back in, when did we decide? Mid-March, we decided to drop the print release because we said, oh, it'll be over by September, October.
Yeah.
We'll do it then. So rather than going to the UK in June or whenever we had originally planned on releasing, we said, oh well, you know, give it a few months. But now we don't really know.
It's obviously going to drag on for a long time.
At some point, you know, it's going to have to, you know.
I think you're actually going to get virtual conventions. I think that's already starting to happen.
But I mean, nothing really big. And I know everyone wants to get their book signed, and they want to meet the artists, and you know, nothing really beats that. So I think we might need to have a revolution and an overthrow of the government, and then maybe we could sort that out. So that's what's stopping us, right?
What's the main difference? This is from James Birch. What's the main difference between Brit and American storytelling? Well, I mean, I've worked on Punisher 2099 and a couple of other things for the States, so I suppose I know enough about it to give some sort of opinion. I think the main thing is that you have a, 22, 24-page comic in the States, and traditionally in Britain...
Oh, hang on, we've gone again.
All right, okay. What happened there?
I don't know why it just suddenly says content no longer available.
Right.
Hopefully, I don't know if we're cutting out or... No,
I think we're still okay.
Right,
I'm sure.
Okay.
So, I think the main thing is the British comic tradition is to have anthologies, and so you tell these stories at breakneck pace. And I think there was a time where, despite all my rantings about British comics and the shit way that publishers behave towards creators, they still produce these amazing stories. So you had, like, I don't know, Tammy with like maybe 6, 7 stories, no, maybe 7, 8 stories, 3 pages each. And they're really telling these intense stories. And the same with Battle. So you have this wonderful feeling of an anthology, and you want it all to be good. And believe me, it all has to be good. If you have one story that's crap, the readers crucify you for it. I still bear the scars from Action when we kicked off with a whole bunch of really suitable street-level stories, apart from one story, Coffin Sub, where I kind of... the idea was like Das Boot, but I was getting tired, and I thought, I'll give it to this writer, who's actually quite a good writer. However, he was a headmaster, retired headmaster, making money doing stories for Action. Must have been something a bit strange there. Anyway, the readers hated Coffin Sub. The abuse I got from it was incredible. So anthologies is the key difference.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. What's next?
Okay. We have to try and answer these fairly quickly. I think Stephen Tricky, you said, where would you get that reprint, please? I presume you're talking about Psycho Killer. If you are talking about Psycho Killer, it's available on Amazon, print on demand. So that's great. Adam McNellis, who won the T-shirt, is very pleased. Has the lockdown increased the creative juices in any way?
I don't know. I mean, it's increased consumption. I mean, our sales have gone up over lockdown definitely. From a creative point of view,
Our lives haven't actually changed that much.
no, we're just locked away writing and creating.
Which is pretty sad. Apart from, you know, wearing masks to go shopping and stuff. It was a bit weird at the beginning, but you know, I think I've just discovered I don't like people very much anyway, and much happier being on my own, really. Just adopt a few more cats, and I saw Mark Miller had a lovely kitten on Twitter, a Maine Coon.
Yeah.
I got very broody when I saw that. I just need to find a rescue kitten that.
No, you've got 3 cats already. We can't. We can't have any more.
Needs rescuing.
Yeah.
That I can't refuse.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Right. See, what else have we got?
Right.
Got some other ones coming up here.
Did I miss anything back there? Sorry if I've missed anybody out. What do you mean too much wine, Wally? Are you talking to me? Take offence at that.
See, I'm getting a little flushed here. Yeah.
It's the heat.
Right. Will there be more opportunities for creative to join in future regarding further Spacewarp issues? Frequently asked questions.
Go to our FAQs on spacewarpcomic.com, and we tried to cover a range of things that we thought would come up.
And on that subject,
poor old Coffin Sub.
I don't know if you noticed, poor old Coffin
Sub was dull as hell.
Yeah, it was. Don't rub it in. What do you expect from a headmaster?
Comic Scene. Hi, Comic Scene. Good luck with Spacewarp. Driving so can't raise a glass or watch, or we'll probably crash the car. Stephen, increased consumption of scotch for me. You've got 6 cats.
Right.
Man after my own heart.
I was going to say, on the subject of other creators, you'll notice that in Hellbreaker, that the opening, there's a sort of two-page text prologue by, was it George MacDonald, isn't it? Yeah. And that obviously it's another writer, and I brought him in to write that because I felt he would have a real feeling.
Hang on.
Why is that doing that? Yeah, it just seems every so often to.
It's happening more and more.
Yeah. Anyway, if you look at the first 2 pages of Hellbreaker, the text pages, they're written by someone else, and it's because I wanted to see whether my proposed role model would work. In other words, whether I could. Are we still here?
I don't know.
I think we are. I'm still talking about George.
Can anyone just confirm whether we keep cutting out? Because I keep getting a warning message coming up saying the content you're trying to something or other is no longer available. Anyway,
the point I wanted to make is, before we cut out again, is that I have brought in another writer on Hellbreaker with George.
On the feature, the police interview at the beginning.
Because he had a real feeling for that kind of old school cop, you know, that kind of Sweeney kind of character and Life on Mars and so on. And it really paid off. I could not have written that kind of dialogue. And I just love it, and so that's probably how I'm going to test out possible writers, by saying, okay, well, what's your thing? What are you into? What can you, you know, if for example, I don't know, let's say a writer has a particular, I don't know, Liverpudlian quality, so you know, they might be good on Jurassic Punks, and so I might say, okay, well, do a sequence on Jurassic Punks. That might be a way forward. Of course, at the same time, I have to qualify that. It's subject to the approval of the artist as well, of course, because it's creator owned. So if the artist says, "Oh, sorry, Pat, you've got to carry on writing it until your dying day," that's just how it has to be. Obviously, I shall twist their arm a bit, but and when it comes to artwork, I think there are opportunities there, because You see, we brought in Darren Cullen.
Oh, and Charlie Gillespie.
Yeah, Charlie Gillespie. I was desperate to find a way to bring Charlie in, because the comic had come together by the time Charlie and I got really talking about things. And I thought, you know, I should have really tried him out earlier. And then I thought, well, he's perfect for Doc Zot. And then there's Darren Cullen on...
Follow Me.
Yeah. And I think he did a fantastic job on that.
That's the feature for Slayer, the recruitment poster.
Yeah. Now, we also tried Scarfolk. Is it Scarfolk Council?
Richard Littler.
Yeah.
We really wanted to get Richard on board.
And he liked us, you know.
He likes your stuff, but he was really busy, and he also then broke his collarbone, and he was just out of action, sadly.
But I would have really loved to have something from Scarfolk Council.
Yeah, we're big fans.
We are total, yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely brilliant. And the scary thing we faced when we came to writing the feature page on Jurassic Punks was we tried Darren, and Darren was very busy. And then we tried Scarfolk Council, and he just couldn't do it either. And we thought, shit, we've got to come up with something as good as these guys.
Yeah, because they were going to, you know, we were hoping to farm out the writing, not just the art, but the writing as well. Because like we were already up to here with all these different things that we were doing, all this bonus material and the stuff on the website, branded and everything.
Yeah, because you would not believe how much work goes into those features. They are so labour intensive.
It's a really interesting sort of writing thing about the features, like the bonus material that we've done for the stories, is that you think you know the story and you think you know the characters, and I've been very, very involved in this as well. And you're like, yeah, I've totally got a handle on this. And then you're like, so we're gonna write a feature page, we're gonna do something. And you realise you can't do it really well because you haven't quite worked everything out in the universe of the story you're writing. And it makes you go much deeper. You have to go really, really deep. There's that writing from the inside out sort of thing.
It's a tough discipline. Yeah, it's the essence of creative writing.
You come up hard against this, like, oh, well, I don't actually know what to say about this because we haven't actually worked out everything to the 9th degree of how everything works. You know what I mean? It's like, well, how would they react? And what is the reason for that? And what is the philosophy behind it? And what's the history of this place?
Yeah, so you work up all that kind of material out. And I think one of the things we discovered with these feature pages was that they are the perfect solution to the dreaded exposition. And exposition is not just the curse of comic writing and novel writing and film and television. You know, it's where you start to watch a movie and you get this great wodge of text comes running up the screen. Not like in Star Wars. I know Star Wars it works there, but otherwise you've just got this massive bloody text. And so you've got the challenge of how do you create the world so that you can sit back and enjoy the characters. Jurassic Punks is a good example, where the two of them are just riffing off each other because he's analog man and he's, you know, sort of 1970s man, and she's from the future and she's buzzing and so on. So you just want to enjoy their conversation. You don't want to keep pumping in lots of exposition. And so I think we discovered almost by accident that the solution was that you have these kind of humorous features which you know, present exposition in a funny way, because we don't have the luxury in a movie where you can have this, you know, moving scroll of text to keep things going. So yeah, but they are very, very labour intensive, those things. Lisa's just checking on
Yeah,
the comments.
no, I was just replying. Yeah, Wooly has confirmed that there's no dropout. When that thing happens on our end, it's not interrupting anything
that's
for
good.
the viewer.
So we haven't been.
So every time we go, oh, what's happening?
What's
It's like there's nothing happening. Okay. Stephen is enumerating all of his pets.
Right. Okay. And yeah.
Good. Thank you, Odette, for confirming, and Bruno, and oh, hi, Adrian. Right. One-eyed Jack.
One-eyed Jack was a story by John Wagner, which was he had the unenviable task of trying to revise Valiant, and One-eyed Jack was a fantastic character, but of course it couldn't save Valiant from its inevitable fault. So yeah, just where I was, just to finish off on the feature thing, you know, if there's someone who has say a creative skill, like Scarfolk Council, or say Darren Cullen with his fantastic stuff he did on Action Man Battlefield Casualties, that's the kind of stuff we could probably bring in. I suggested that maybe it's something that could run on the maybe on the web ahead of phase 2. So no, it's good. I like the the lighting don't look quite so. Yeah, it looks better. So yeah, that's a way forward, I think, for and of course the other one is Future Schlock. Something I haven't talked about is you know, we did this first Future Schlock, and
that's drawn by Cliff Cumber, and that's branded, and you can get it if you sign up to the Spacewarp newsletter.
Yeah. So I could envisage if there was a long delay between seasons, I could envisage us doing maybe a number of Future Schlocks, maybe a number of humorous features, and it's one of the reasons why we put so much work into the additional bonus material on the Spacewarp website, because we're thinking, well, it might be okay at the moment, but if there's a long period, you know, 6 months or a year or whatever between issues, it's to keep the energy going there. I mean, we're all in new territory here, and I know most of you are you know, you really want the paper edition, but you know, it's still in my mind that that elusive audience that we are aware of, and we've been interacting with them a bit. You know, the what should we say, 12 to 18-year-olds, a lot of them are going to consume comics on their iPhone or whatever it is, and in that situation, a guided view is really going to work, and that's something we're going to say more about.
Yeah, I'm going to be pushing the guided view experience next week, which I think is really magical. I love books. I mean, you can tell we've got a shitload of books.
I've got a few of them.
But you know, I love vinyl as well. You know, but I listen to most stuff on off my computer. But I think both things have their pros and cons. So you know, you're standing in the queue at the post office, and you can just whip out your phone and start reading a story or a comic, and you can, you know, flick through your guided view, and I think that's really magical. And
well, I mean, I'm really fascinated by that original audience that we lost on 2000 AD, because everyone who reads 2000 AD now generally is what, 30 something, 40 something, whatever.
50 something.
Yeah, no, don't go that far. Just, where's that leave me, for God's sake?
You're a very young man.
I was very young when I started 2000.
We have got a couple more questions.
Yeah. Okay, I can see one here.
So, have you ever thought about writing a how-to-write comics book from Stephen Trickey?
Yeah.
And Stephen Trickey, by the way, who's asking lots of questions and is a massive animal lover, is also a really good artist, and we were really inspired by his
colour system.
His excuse me, yeah, really neon, unnatural colours.
I love those neon colours, Stephen.
Yeah, he does good horror. Check him out.
Yeah, because we wanted to get a different identity for our covers, and one of the things we considered early on was giving it a kind of neon pop art look. Anyway, on to the next one. I can read it. At the risk of unleashing an enormous rant, will we ever see Finn again? I think they are going to publish or republish Finn. I'm trying to get my head behind it. They assure me that there's no reason why it's just taking its place in the queue. I think that's their logic behind why Finn hasn't been reprinted. When was I first complaining about it? 3 years ago? 4 years ago? I don't know. And there were petitions about it and so on. And it did piss me off, Rebellion's reaction, which was to all these readers' complaints. This isn't just me. This is readers saying, look, for God's sake, this is a character who, after all, at one time was more popular than Slain. And in response to this tremendous, outpouring, was just noted. And I felt that was really selling the readers short. Finn is a fantastic character, and for a while, maybe it does seem a bit paranoid. I was wondering, if they got some problem with it, its political stance or whatever. I don't know. I think maybe they just got their order of things. I think there is personal preferences there. Now, whether it's at the top, from Jason Kingsley or further down, they're never going to tell me. And I'm so used to bullshit from comic publishers that, I'll keep my own counsel on this. I think there's someone there who doesn't like Finn, and I think that's covered up with a fair bit of spin, because, my God, they bring out other comics, other characters, much faster than Finn. And they're aware of the fact that the reader likes it. So I think it's a personal preference, but who it is who's obstructing it from being reprinted, we will never know unless there's an insider who, breaks ranks and tells us. And of course, the other factor is there's Third World War. Now, when's there ever stopped them before? You've got Third World War running. I mean, they might say, well, we've got to do all the Third World War stuff before we get on to Finn. And that's assuming that they do it that way. I think it's more because Rebellion has become a very successful nostalgia house. It's living on past glories, and someone needs to do it. I mean, I'm pleased that they're doing girls' comics, for example. But it's not much bloody good when you're coming to a character like Finn. It's actually got something to say in today's effing world, for God's sake. I mean, how many other 2000 AD characters are particularly relevant for today's, what's going on today? You imagine what Finn, how he would be reacting to some of the situations that are going on today. As for originating Finn, they don't ask me to originate anything anymore. I think they'll never admit it, and they'll cover it up with spin and so on, but I think they'd rather I just sort of just fade away into the sunset. And, well, where they're concerned, they've got what they wanted.
Right, okay.
That was a rant. That wasn't too bad.
That was a fairly short rant. Damien, I feel a bit mixed about this, Damien. I can definitely see the appeal of guided view to a less experienced reader.
That's contentious.
I'll take that kindly. I think that's slightly missing the point. Of course, additionally, it's great for a less experienced reader, but it's also, I think, an enhanced way of looking at a comic, because of course you don't, it's not either or. You see the entire page first, and then you can go into the guided view and go panel by panel, And you can always come out at any time and just look at the entire picture and actually, you know, sort of pinch and zoom again. The thing about it is it adds an extra element. The sum is greater than the parts, I think. It almost creates a bit of a mood, an extra mood.
It gives it a pop art quality, and I actually like guided view because I like these images to be really big, and with guided view they are. I don't really like comic art pages being really pinched down small. So if I can blow something up really big and really study it, and on that subject, something that it's a nettle we may or may not have to grasp in the future. There's the Comixology guided view, and we've got to compare it, and we're going to get really anal here. We've got to compare it with Lisa's guided view, because she did a version, and I think her version's better.
Well, Comixology are absolutely brilliant, and I thank you, Comixology. They're so supportive, and we've had, you know, special personal attention from them. Shout out to Mike Eisenberg, should he ever watch this. He won't. He's far too busy. But they do a fantastic guided view. I think they possibly originated guided view. I'm not sure. I will get corrected if I'm wrong. But what Amazon have done is the Kindle people at Amazon have created a Kindle Create software package, which is for text and for comics. And within that, you have the ability to make your own guided view, which means that, you know, because I'm the publisher and I have all the time and the passion for the artwork, is that where there are fairly large panels with lots of stuff going on, quite complex panels, particularly like Bruno style stuff in Jurassic Parks, particularly Executioners by Gareth, perhaps, you know, that you could have like 3 different focal points in a panel, and it's just like, God, there's so much going on there and there and there, and I need to see it all. So the Comixology guided view will just show you that panel, because they're just showing you panel by panel. Whereas what I did is I zoomed in on particular bits and then pull out and then go into another bit of the panel before moving on to
It's
the
really
next
good.
panel.
Lisa's version is really good.
Labour intensive, and I have that version.
We'll make it the deluxe version.
But the thing is, it's proprietary to Kindle for a start, so I can't, as far as I'm aware, I have no way of making that available to anywhere outside of Kindle.
What, you mean like Kobo or something?
Yeah, I you know, it's not, because it's not an EPUB file, it's a .kpf or something. Yeah, I think it's that, I can't remember. Whereas Comixology, they do their guided view. They've replaced mine. I did mine as a fail-safe in case Comixology couldn't upload it. Sorry, I'm getting really boring now, really technical. Anyway, I uploaded mine there in case Comixology couldn't do it. They replaced my copy, and I got to see theirs for the first time. And I thought, well, this is great. It's not quite as detailed as mine, but their one, they provide EPUB files to me. Quid pro quo kind of, we don't really have to, but we're helping you out. They give me all of the EPUB files, which then I'm free to, you know, either sell direct or upload to Kobo, Apple, where any other platform I want to do that.
But you're glad you asked that question.
I don't know why I'm still talking.
Right. No. It's,
our viewing figures have gone down.
Right. There's a question here from Willie Russell. Any more interest in film or TV adaptations of your work? Yeah, there's some interest in American Reaper as we speak, and I think if all goes well, hopefully we should have an announcement in the next, I don't know, famous last words where movies are concerned. Yeah. Well, I'll stick my neck out and say next couple of weeks, but that is movies. Where Rebellion are concerned, the one that comes to mind is Flesh, where they said that they wanted to produce Flesh themselves with, you know, they've got this big studio and so on. And so I spent quite a lot of time talking to them about it, and they were going to send me a contract, and they kept in touch with me. and then suddenly one day they just stopped talking about it. And then meanwhile, a television company said, we're big fans of Flesh, we'd like to do a TV series with it. And they were told by Rebellion that the rights were not available. Now, if you just think about that for a moment, and I will try hard not to rant, this is my effing character, right? And they don't bother to tell me why, whatever went wrong with their plan, and they don't want a very reputable television company to make it. Now, these kind of things happen, but if you look at their Rebellion's track record over 20 years, you've got Dread, and that's it, as far as I'm aware, that's actually come out, and I think that's got something to do with it.
I think there's a limit on how long your Facebook Live can be. I don't know.
So we've got to wrap up.
Is it 90 minutes?
It's no good asking me. Any other last quick questions?
It might be a good idea to kind of wrap things up.
Okay, let me wrap up with one final question. Any chance of seeing the art of Faye Dalton in the next? I
don't think we can afford Faye anymore.
No. I mean, she is absolutely brilliant, and I'm so thrilled she got work with Titan and so on. I tried my damnedest to get her into 2000 AD, and I couldn't. And although I assume the reason was that she's perhaps too sexy for 2000 AD. They'll come up with some other bullshit reason, but you work it out for yourselves. Anyway, I love her artwork, and we will try to work her in some way.
That would be amazing, yeah.
Because she's fantastic.
So shall we wrap things up?
Thanks so much, guys, for putting up with me going on about all these different things that are very close to my heart, and thanks so much for supporting Spacewarp, and we will
really appreciate it.
And we will do our damnedest to get the paper one that you really want out.
Just to stop everybody asking me the same question. So, and a quick one there from Dave. You weren't rude, Damien. Yeah, no hard feelings. No hard feelings at all. Honestly, it's fine.
Okay, thanks ever so much. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it.
Oh, and hopefully we can save it and upload it to YouTube if anyone wants to come in and look at bits later. I'll try and do that. All right.
Terrific. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks guys. Bye.